From homeless to millionaire, the inspiring journey of a black man. Arthur Mason's name was everywhere. Headlines screamed about the man who rose from nothing, literally sleeping on chilled city benches barely a decade ago, to owning the tallest, sky-piercing hotel in Midtown. From homeless to millionaire, they blared, with pictures of sharp suits, gleaming penthouses, and private jets that looked like toys in his sprawling hangar. Everyone knew the story, or so they thought. But beneath the brand-new shine and press-perfect smile, Arthur carried a secret weight no money could lift. The silence of his penthouse was deafening. Nights stretched long, walls closing in like a cold cage. The crowds that once cheered him on in distant memory were ghosts now. A hollow ache throbbed deep inside, something raw, unexplained, unimaginable, a void that swallowed him whole. One restless night, driven by a fierce, restless hunger to reconnect with something real, Arthur did something no press, nothing. The hotel was buzzing, laughing guests and ringing bells, slamming carts, whispered complaints. But Arthur moved silently through its veins, the back hallways, the clang of pipes, the worn floors behind the glittering lobby. He saw things no CEO ever did. The tired faces pressed between shifts, the harsh fluorescent lights flickering over grimy hands, the whispered struggles behind locked doors. And then he met Anna. Anna, with her worn eyes fierce beneath exhaustion, holding tight to the last threads of hope. A young mother with grit carved deep in her jaw, forced to make a cramped storage room a home, its cold walls a cruel cradle for her and her little brother Benny. Benny, who never stopped fighting his own silent battles, frail and trembling in his wheelchair, hinged entirely on Anna's unwavering strength. Arthur's chest tightened. The ache inside him roared louder than ever. He wanted to reach in, to help, for once, to give more than just money tossed from a distance, until the moment she learned his truth. The world cracked open. Betrayal hit like a fist. So, it was all a lie? You're not one of us? Her voice broke, trembling with hurt and disbelief. She shut him out of sight, out of reach. And then Benny's accident happened. A heart-stopping crash in the dim corridor. A frantic rush. Screams swallowed by sterile hallways. Arthur's hands shook violently, the cold sweat slicking down his back as he fought to hold Benny's fragile life together. In those terrible seconds, all the walls between them shattered. Anna's glare softened through tears. A crack in the armor. Arthur's intentions bled through his silence, deep, raw, desperate to make things right. But could trust grow from ruins? Could Arthur bridge the gap stretched wide by secrets and pain? The hotel's lights blurred, the city's noise swelled outside, and the chapter closed on a breath held tight. The story far from over. The future hanging in a fragile balance. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube has removed their subscriptions without warning. Just take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss out on any exclusive content coming your way. And while you're there, leave that powerful like that helps me a lot with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know all the amazing people who are part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. Arthur held his breath, the world around him narrowing to the sound of Benny's labored breathing. Panic swirled in the air, thick as fog. He could barely process the cries, the chaos enveloping them like a tight noose. Anna's face was a mask of desperation, tears carving tracks down her cheeks, a stark contrast against her tired skin. A heavy, suffocating silence fell, muffling the frenetic energy of the hotel. Arthur had never felt such weight before. His heart raced as his hands trembled, desperately trying to stabilize the fragile body of Benny, his pulse a haunting presence in the air. Where was the help? Where were the cheers, the guests oblivious to the unfolding nightmare? Out of nowhere, the overhead lights flickered, casting long shadows that danced with each unbearable thud of Arthur's heart. The empty hallway felt like a world of its own, isolated from the laughter and luxury behind the lobby doors. Then came the sudden, jarring sound, a deep, rumbling blast, a shudder rippling through the very foundation of the hotel. Arthur's blood ran cold. His breath caught. The walls trembled wildly, and the lights above flickered once more before exploding into darkness. "What the hell?" someone screamed, echoing Arthur's own frantic thoughts. He clutched Benny tighter, shielding him from the world. But within that chaos, another sound emerged, the faintest whisper, barely audible yet unmistakably clear. Arthur. His head snapped up. Anna was wide-eyed, her gaze darting, a mix of recognition and disbelief, dread pooling in her stomach. You're Arthur Mason? The millionaire?" It was a statement, not a question. Before he could respond, a brilliant flash illuminated the corridor, revealing a figure amidst the chaos. An unknown man, rugged, stained, with a face that carried the weight of 1,000 stories. He stepped forward, eyes fixed on Arthur with an intensity that felt like a challenge. "You've got it all wrong," the man shouted, voice booming against the scurrying guests. "He's not just some businessman. He's tied to everything, the money, the lies. You think he just rose from the ashes? No, he's the one who set them on fire." "What?" Arthur felt the ground shift beneath him. Stares turned to him, mouths agape. Confusion morphed into shock, then betrayal. The whispers sharpened, slicing into him like glass. "Is this true?" Anna's voice trembled, and Arthur could see the flicker of hope fading, extinguished by the weight of the man's words. He opened his mouth to protest, to explain, but nothing came out. How could he defend himself when every piece of his facade felt like a wisp of smoke, dissipating in the air? Just then, the loud clang of metal echoed through the once vibrant hotel. A heavy door swung open at the end of the corridor, pouring in light, revealing the stark reality that lay beyond the moment of panic. It wasn't just chaos, it was the police. Flashing lights pulsed in sync with the heartbeat in his chest. Tension thickened as the officers began streaming in, faces grave, orders barking through the air. "Everyone, stay back, secure the area." Benny's pulse faltered. Arthur grasped for hope amidst this maelstrom of confusion and fear, but all he could think was how deep the web of lies had grown. "Arthur Mason," an officer intoned, fixing him with a steely glare. "You need to come with us." In that moment, every lie, every decision, Every mask he wore crumbled, leaving nothing but raw, open wounds in their wake. Would he be dragged back to the shadows he thought he escaped? As the police advanced toward him, he felt the last threads of connection slip through his fingers, the chasm of trust widening precariously. What had he really built? And would the world he fought so hard to forge survive the shocking revelations waiting just around the corner? The police officer took a step closer, voice sharp like ice, slicing through the fog. "Arthur Mason, you need to come with us." The words hit him like a punch. Everything froze. The shadows lengthened. The lights flickered out again. Panic twisted in his gut. Anna's eye, all he could hear was the frantic beat of his heart and Benny's faint wheezing. But then chaos erupted. Just as the officer reached for his arm, a loud crash came from the far end of the corridor. The heavy door at the edge of the passageway flew off its hinges, sending splintered wood flying. An eruption of dust clouded the air, and the piercing squeal of metal rang out. Arthur squinted against the dust. Then came the sound, the roar of an engine. A powerful machine surged into the corridor, plowing through the ruined door. It was a maintenance van. The driver slammed the brakes, skidding to a halt mere feet away. Before he could comprehend what was happening, a figure climbed out, a silhouette framed against the chaos. A familiar face leapt out from the shadows. It was his brother, Jamal. "Arthur!" Jamal shouted, eyes wild. "Get away from them, now!" The crowd gasped. The police officers exchanged worried glances. Everything shifted. Arthur's breath caught in his throat. How did Jamal find him? "Get back!" the officer yelled, hand hovering near his belt. But the chaos erupted, everyone scrambling to understand this sudden turn of events. "Trust me, we don't have time." Jamal's urgency was palpable. He jumped over debris, the van's engine still rumbling behind him. "I wouldn't have come if I didn't have to. You're in danger." Anna's face was a mix of confusion and disbelief. She stepped back, glancing from Jamal to Arthur. "What is going on?" It was too much to process. "Jamal, just listen. The hometown, it's not what you think. You need to understand." Jamal's voice cracked, and Arthur felt the floor beneath him buckle. But the words hung in the air, thick with something unsaid. He saw the uncertainty in Anna's eyes, felt the weight of 100 questions press against his chest. Suddenly, sirens wailed outside like banshees. The lights of police vehicles flickering through the hotel's windows. Jamal's face took on a hard edge. "They won't believe you, Arthur. They've been waiting for this moment. You need to choose." "Choose?" Arthur echoed, confusion wrapping around him like a thick fog. "What are you talking about? I don't understand." Before Jamal could respond, a blinding light exploded from the van as the door swung open again. A group of figures in dark tactical gear flooded out, floodlights shining, radios crackling, shouts commanding order. Nausea twisted Arthur's stomach. This was escalating so quickly. Then a woman stepped to the forefront, her eyes locking onto Arthur with an intensity that made his body freeze. "Arthur Mason," she declared, voice booming, "you're coming with us." Panic surged again. "What? Why? I haven't done anything wrong." "Yet," she replied, voice smooth and cool. "You're connected, Arthur. Your brother. He's the key. And it's time to face what you've avoided." The world spun off its axis. Arthur's thoughts raced. What are you all hiding? Don't take him. The truth crashed down on Arthur, and he felt the weight of betrayal. What do you know, Anna? He rasped, his pulse frantic. It's not what you think, she spat, desperation igniting her words. Clouds of sorrow shrouded her features as if she'd held this truth close for too long. Sometimes to rise, people get burned, and you might be the spark we all worry about. A gasp swept through the crowd as all eyes shifted between them. Fear and uncertainty swirling like thick smoke. Arthur stood on the edge of everything he'd fought for, teetering between the man he was and the jagged truths about to consume him. Could he trust his brother? Could he trust Anna? And the looming question, echoing louder than all the chaos, what dark power was he tied to that would shatter everything he thought he built? Nothing made sense anymore. As the sirens grew deafening and the world crashed around him, all he could do was stand frozen in that moment, waiting for the fall. Arthur stood frozen, heart hammering in his chest as chaos swirled around him. The weight of Anna's gaze bore down like a physical force. What did Jamal mean? What choice was he talking about? The noiso. Arthur Mason! The woman in tactical gear shouted again. You're coming with us! His breaths quickened. I haven't done anything! Panic clawed at him, tearing through the uncertainty that wrapped around him like a suffocating shroud. Nerves pulled tight in his chest. Anna shifted her weight, confusion etched across her face, and Jamal stepped forward, voice urgent. Arthur, listen! This goes deeper than you know. But before he could respond, a thunderous crash echoed through the hallway. The lights flickered violently, plunging them into intermittent darkness. The ground felt like it shifted beneath them, a tremor shaking their fragile world. Then it came, a loud roar, a figure bursting through the smoke. A blast of energy erupted, sending everyone sprawling. Arthur fell to the ground, a sharp pain jolting through him. He blinked against the dust and then gasped in disbelief. Standing in front of him was a familiar silhouette, Devlin, the face he last saw years ago, twisted with anger and determination. You've been a fool, Arthur! Devlin shouted, voice the calm before a storm. You thought you could just walk away from this? The crowd gasped. Anna recoiled. Devlin, what are you doing here? But he didn't care about her. Devlin's eyes locked on Arthur, fierce and burning. They're using you, you idiot. Everything you built, it's a lie. An insidious chill ran through Arthur. He struggled to stand, heart racing. What are you talking about? Did you think your money came from hard work? That hotel you own? You're nothing but a puppet, a scapegoat. Devlin's laugh echoed, sharp and cruel. You have no idea who really runs things. Every word hit Arthur like a punch. His chest tightened, breath caught in his throat. What do you mean? He barely heard Anna's plea, the voices around him turning into a distant hum. All Arthur could focus on was the man he had once trusted, the enigma that had once been his ally. Devlin stepped closer, intent in his eyes. It's time to show you the truth. He reached into his pocket, pulling out a flash drive. This holds everything. Your incriminating deals, the arrangements, the real owners behind your empire. The room fell silent, tension like a live wire. Arthur's mind spun. Betrayal coursed through him. "Why are you doing this?" Devlin grinned. "But it was hollow. Because I want you to see just how deep the rabbit hole goes. This isn't just about money. It's about control, connections, and power." He gripped the flash drive tightly, eyes flashing with something dark and dangerous. Suddenly, the lights blinked back, sharp and bright, illuminating the chaos once again. But now, everything felt different. The police officers were no longer the only threat. The air crackled with unspoken danger. Arthur's pulse raced, a surge of adrenaline. He had to figure this out. "Hand it over," the tactical woman snapped, voice firm, eyes darting between the chaos and Devlin. "Not a chance," Devlin shouted, waving the flash drive tauntingly. "This is the key to everything you thought you knew." Amidst the turmoil, Anna grabbed Arthur's arm. "We need to leave, now." Her voice was urgent, filled with raw fear. But Arthur was transfixed. Before he could respond, a piercing noise cut through the air. An explosion, ringing sharp and loud. A blast shattered the lobby glass behind them. Shards flew, slicing through the air like daggers. In that moment, time stood still. Chaos erupted. Screams rang out. Shadows and light danced violently as the hotel began to tremble. Arthur's mind raced. Who was friend? Who was foe? "Arthur!" Jamal shouted, desperation bleeding into his voice. "Trust me, please." But as he turned to find his brother, he caught a glimpse of Devlin, a strange smile creeping onto his face, something morbidly triumphant lurking in his eyes. And all at once, everything shifted again. Betrayal and truth intertwined, friendships degraded into facades. What had he truly built? Was there anyone left to trust? And as smoke filled the air, enveloping him in a thick, choking embrace, Arthur realized he might lose everything all over again. The world crumbled around him, and all he could do was stand there overwhelmed with confusion and fear. The reality he knew was exploding, and in its place, shadows of uncertainty whispered promises of betrayal. What awaited him in the darkness ahead? The world crumbled around him, and all Arthur could do was stand there. Overwhelmed with confusion and fear, the reality he knew was exploding, shadows of uncertainty whispering promises of betrayal. Then it happened. A sudden, thunderous boom erupted from the van, echoing like a cannon shot through the hotel corridor. The air thickened as a shockwave surged, knocking everyone off balance. Arthur's heart dropped. He stumbled, grasping the edge of the wall to keep from falling. "Get down!" Jamal yelled, pushing Anna and Arthur to the floor. Within moments, the overhead lights flickered violently. Amidst the turmoil, Devlin was lost in the crowd. Arthur struggled to find him, panic churning in his gut. "Devlin!" he shouted, but his voice got swallowed in the cacophony. Then, like lightning ripping through the storm, a figure emerged from the chaos, moving with a weighty purpose. It was a woman in black gear. She raised her weapon. "Get your hands where I can see them." Her voice cut through the noise, fierce and commanding. Arthur's blood ran cold. "Wait," he called, confusion clawing at him. Was she with the police or against them? The world around him seemed to blur, sounds swirling into a nonsensical blend. "Now," she shouted. But before anyone could react, like a puppet pulled by strings, Devlin reappeared, broadening the chasm of confusion. He lunged sideways, arms raised. "You don't want to do this." Everything stopped. Time froze. They all stared at Devlin, whose eyes were wide with desperation. "You don't know what you're messing with. Stop." As if in slow motion, the woman's finger tightened on the trigger. Devlin dove forward, shouting something Arthur couldn't hear. Then the piercing crack of gunfire. Arthur's heart seized. He felt sick, bile rising in his throat. The world shattered in a burst of motion. Devlin crumpled to the ground, slow, agonizing fall. The moment fractured, splintered in every direction. Everyone screamed, chaos erupting once more as people scrambled to get away. "Devlin!" Arthur screamed, shock ripping through him. He wasn't just a man on a mission anymore. He was bleeding out, his life draining away right in front of them. "Get back!" the woman yelled, but Arthur bolted toward Devlin, his legs moving before his mind could catch up. They reached him, the clamoring thoughts barely registering. Devlin was gasping, eyes glazed but fixated on Arthur's. You have to know the truth," he coughed, a horrible, choking sound, blood pooling on the floor. "Stay with me," Arthur pleaded, frantic, but Devlin was slipping, his fingers trembling on the ground, eyes struggling against the dark edge of unconsciousness. "Listen," he breathed hard, each word a fight. "It's all connected. Anna, it's not what you think." But Anna's face twisted in fear, confusion turning into something darker. "What are you talking about?" I'm Devlin gripped Arthur's arm weakly, eyes piercing through the chaos as if trying to reach into his soul. "It's your family, your father. They're involved. They destroyed everything." Those words fell into the space like a stone into water. Ripples spread out, crashing against everything Arthur thought he could comprehend. His father? Suddenly the woman shouted again, "Get away from him now." But the truth hung heavy, drowning Arthur in disbelief. His mind raced, trying to piece it all together. "Devlin," he began, pleading. But it was too late. Devlin gasped, breath shuddering hot against Arthur's skin. And then he went still. A shattering silence engulfed the room. Arthur's heart raced. His chest tightened. "No! No!" He recoiled in horror. The laughter in the corners of his mind turned into deafening screams. Panic erupted again, officers pushing in, shoving bodies aside as they rushed to check Devlin's lifeless body. Overwhelmed, Anna grabbed Arthur's arm, her touch grounding him. "We have to go, now." But he shook his head, eyes glued to the scene unfolding. "No. This can't be happening." He knew something. He was trying to warn me, and then it hit him. A sickening realization, a violent twist in the narrative beyond mere betrayal. Everything he'd built might have been built on lies, deception, connections he never intended to have. The pain twisted deep in his gut, anchoring him in the moment while the world moved on. Would he now have to face his own family, the shadowy figures lurking behind his so-called success? As the adrenaline coursed, rushing through his veins, he caught a glimpse of Jamal through the crowd, frantically trying to maneuver his way back to Arthur. His brother's eyes were wild, wordlessly warning, pleading for him to listen. But then the floor shook again. "I need answers," Arthur yelled, desperation igniting. And as those words left his mouth, chaos intensified. The feeling of dread grew heavier. What had just happened? What had he stumbled into? The lights flickered once more, casting frantic shadows across the scene. And all Arthur could think was, what lay in store for him next? What devastating truth was just about to surface, waiting in the wings? The world crumbled around him, and all Arthur could do was stand there, overwhelmed with confusion and fear. The reality he knew was exploding. Shadows of uncertainty whispering promises of betrayal. Then it happened. A sudden, thunderous boom erupted from the van, echoing like a cannon shot through the hotel corridor. The air thickened as a shockwave surged, knocking everyone off balance. Arthur's heart dropped. He stumbled, grasping the edge of the wall to keep from falling. "Get down!" Jamal yelled, pushing Anna and Arthur to the floor. Within moments, the overhead lights flickered violently, casting long, frantic shadows over the chaos. Dust filled the air, stingy and dense, making it hard to breathe. Amidst the turmoil, Devlin was lost in the crowd. Arthur struggled to find him, panic churning in his gut. "Devlin!" he shouted, but his voice got swallowed in the cacophony. Then, like lightning ripping through the storm, a figure emerged from the chaos, moving with a weighty purpose. It was a woman in black gear. She raised her weapon. "Get your hands where I can see them." Her voice cut through the noise, fierce and commanding. Arthur's blood ran cold. "Wait!" he called, confusion clawing at him. Was she with the police or against them? The world around him seemed to blur, sounds swirling into a nonsensical blend. "Now!" she shouted. But before anyone could react, like a puppet pulled by strings, Devlin reappeared, broadening the chasm of confusion. He lunged sideways, arms raised. "You don't want to do this." Everything stopped. Time froze. They all stared at Devlin, whose eyes were wide with desperation. "You don't know what you're messing with. Stop!" As if in slow motion, the woman's finger tightened on the trigger. Devlin dove forward, shouting something Arthur couldn't hear. Then, the piercing crack of gunfire. Arthur's heart seized. He felt sick, bile rising in his throat. The world shattered in a burst of motion. Devlin crumpled to the ground, slow, agonizing fall. The moment fractured, splintered in every direction. Everyone screamed. Chaos erupting once more as people scrambled to get away. "Devlin!" Arthur screamed, shock ripping through him. He wasn't just a man on a mission anymore. He was bleeding out, his life draining away right in front of them. "Get back!" The woman yelled, but Arthur bolted toward Devlin, his legs moving before his mind could catch up. They reached him, the clamoring thoughts barely registering. Devlin was gasping, eyes glazed but fixated on Arthur's. You have to know the truth." He coughed, a horrible, choking sound, blood pooling on the floor. "Stay with me," Arthur pleaded, frantic. But Devlin was slipping, his fingers trembling on the ground, eyes struggling against the dark edge of unconsciousness. "Listen!" He breathed hard, each word a fight. "It's all connected. Anna, it's not what you think." But Anna's face twisted in fear, confusion turning into something darker. "What are you talking about?" I'm Devlin, gripped Arthur's arm weakly, eyes piercing through the chaos as if trying to reach into his soul. "It's your family, your father. They're involved. They destroyed everything." Those words fell into the space like a stone into water. Ripples spread out, crashing against everything. His father? Suddenly the woman shouted again, "Get away from him now!" But the truth hung heavy, drowning Arthur in disbelief. His mind raced, trying to piece it all together. "Devlin," he began, pleading, but it was too late. Devlin gasped, breath shuddering hot against Arthur's skin. And then he went still. A shattering silence engulfed the room. Arthur's heart raced. His chest tightened. "No, no!" He recoiled in horror. The laughter in the corners of his mind turned into deafening screams. Panic erupted again, officers pushing in, shoving bodies aside as they rushed to check Devlin's lifeless body. Overwhelmed, Anna grabbed Arthur's arm, her touch grounding him. "We have to go. Now!" But he shook his head, eyes glued to the scene unfolding. Devlin was gone, again, leaving only questions in his wake. Then it happened. Everything shifted again. A massive crack split the air above them. The ceiling trembled and then came crashing down, sending debris flying like missiles. Shouting, terror, and chaos morphed into a fluid wave of confusion. Suddenly, a voice cut through it all, low and haunting. "Now, the real game begins." Arthur's heart skipped a beat. He whipped around to see another figure stepping out from behind the shadows, someone he never expected, his father. Cameron Mason, the man he'd thought was long gone, appeared, dressed in a sharp suit that seemed utterly out of place amidst the wreckage. The piercing eyes were familiar, filled with something dark and enthralling. "What?" Arthur gasped, choking on disbelief. Cameron smiled, a twisted, oily smile that sent shivers down Arthur's spine. "Did you think I wouldn't come for my son? I've always been watching, Arthur. Always." Every voice fell silent. Gasps echoed like whispers of lost hope. The reality twisted around them, fissures of betrayal widening as Arthur struggled to grasp what it meant. Why was he here? "Your success, it's all mine," Cameron continued, voice smooth as silk. "You thought this was your brilliant idea? No, Arthur, you were just the bait." Panic flooded. His father had been a specter all along, lurking in the shadows, pulling strings. Trust shattered, relationships splintering like glass. What game had they been playing? "Dad, no!" Arthur cried, disbelief morphing into anger, desperation rushing over him. "What are you saying?" But Cameron just laughed, a sound that felt like ice. "Welcome to the real family business, son. Prepare for your awakening." And as he turned, the world around them spun, shadows dancing in anticipation, leaving Arthur standing alone at the brink of chaos, everything he'd known unraveling into a dark abyss. What did this mean for him? What consequences loomed now that his own father had stepped back into his life? Arthur's heart pounded as the room twisted around him, his father's face looming, a nightmare stepping straight out of shadows. Cameron Mason, the man who had vanished from his life, now stood before him, wearing arrogance like a suit. Everything he thought he knew unraveled, strands snapping under the weight of truth he never expected to confront. "Everything you've accomplished?" Cameron's voice dripped with scorn. "It's mine. You were never meant to be in charge." A chill spiraled down Arthur's spine. He searched his father's eyes, desperate for some flicker of affection. "You're lying. I built this with my own hands." But the anger fizzled, replaced by a sense of despair that twisted his gut. "Built? You played house while I built empires." Cameron's laugh echoed, cruel and hollow. Arthur's mind raced, grappling with the image of his past, the path that brought him to this moment. His chest tightened. Was it all a farce? "Stop," he murmured, fighting back the rising nausea. As the air crackled with tension, a yell pierced through the chaos. "Look out!" It was Jamal, voice strained and panicked. Arthur turned just in time to see a figure darting down the hall, panic etched into every line of their face. A man he recognized through the haze of confusion. It was Devlin. But something was off. There was a wildness in his eyes, a frenzied desperation that made Arthur's heart race. Devlin stumbled, glancing over his shoulder as if death itself were chasing him. "Arthur, you have to. They know. They know everything." Devlin's words splintered amidst the chaos, too urgent to grasp fully. His expression was a blend of terror and determination. "Devlin, wait!" But before Arthur could process, Devlin collided with a metal cart, sending dishes crashing to the floor. The sound shattered the frenzied atmosphere, drawing everyone's attention. "Get away from him!" shouted the tactical woman, but her voice barely reached him over the surging noise. Devlin's eyes locked onto Arthur's, pleading, raw. "You don't understand. They're coming for you." "Who? Who's coming?" Arthur's breath felt shallow as shadows shifted around him, dark figures forming against the flashing lights. His father's smirk faded, replaced by a look of icy realization. The chaos exploded when the hotel doors burst open. A team clad in tactical gear flooded in. Weapons raised. "Everyone down. Get on the ground." Arthur's pulse quickened. The swirling mess of bodies, the urgent cries for help, it all blended into a whirlwind of fear. This is madness. He felt trauma clawing at his insides. "Run!" Jamal shouted, urgency lacing his words. Arthur turned to follow, yet all he could see was Devlin, trapped, terror threading through his gaze. "Help!" Devlin screamed, backing away into the darkness, trapped by his pursuers. And then it happened. Just as the officers closed in, Devlin fell to his knees, clutching his chest. "No!" Arthur's scream ripped through the air. "Arthur!" Jamal yelled, but it was too late. Devlin's body shuddered once, then collapsed, head lolling to the side, eyes glazing over. A bolt of shock hit Arthur, leaving him breathless. "Devlin, no!" Everything crashed, fury, sadness, confusion, all mingling into a storm. Why was this happening? Hadn't he survived enough? But as he staggered forward, the floor beneath him shook, a rumble like thunder that resonated through the chaos. A loud bang erupted again, this time from the van. It burst open. A flash of white light burst forth, a blinding flash that left everyone temporarily blinded. Then the room bathed in a new dawn. Overwhelming light poured in as a figure emerged from the van, a woman. Her eyes sharp, like daggers, shimmered with something dark and powerful. "Time's up, Cameron. We've waited long enough." The words hung in the air, electric with dread. Arthur's heart raced. Who was she? As recognition crossed Cameron's face, the truth began to unfold. It was his mother. But it wasn't the woman he remembered. Not the loving figure from childhood. This person was something else entirely. "Mom?" he breathed, shock splitting through him like lightning. "Arthur, we need to talk." Her voice was devoid of warmth, cold and calculating. The world tipped on its axis, everything twisted. His father wasn't just a fallen figure. His mother was back, threatening to pull apart everything Arthur ever believed. Tension soared, fraying at the edges as Arthur's story unraveled like a glowing thread in the night. "Mom, what are you doing here?" "You." But before he could finish, a sudden crash echoed, a shudder of glass. That blinding light pulsed brighter, and the hotel trembled beneath their feet. In that moment, everything shifted again, a new revelation cascading over him. "Run!" Jamal shouted. But Arthur knew it was already too late. The truth was crashing in, and with it, their lives were about to split wide open. What had they set in motion? A new game had begun, and this time the players were not only battling for survival. They were drawn into a web of betrayal that went deeper than any of them had anticipated. The real game was just about to unfold, and a dark revelation hung in the air. What if he was never the player, but the pawn in a much darker scheme? Arthur's heart raced as he faced both his parents, their shadows looming large against the chaos swirling around them. The air was electric, charged with tension and fear. He could almost taste the desperation thickening the atmosphere. Cameron stepped click. "You were never meant to stand alone." And then something snapped. The ground beneath them didn't just tremble, it shook violently, the sound tearing through the air like thunder. The hotel groaned, walls bowing as if to the weight of their secrets. "Everyone out!" someone shouted from the back, panic rippling through the crowd. But Arthur stayed rooted, caught in the horror of what his father had just disclosed. Had his entire life been scripted by this man? What kind of puppetry had he been a part of? "Now!" Jamal shouted, pulling at Arthur's arm, but he couldn't move. His eyes darted from his father's chilling grin to his mother, whose silence spoke volumes. Then, without warning, the roof buckled. A massive beam splintered above them, crashing down with a deafening roar. The light flickered out, plunging them into darkness, screams swallowing the moment whole. Arthur saw a shadow dart past him. Devlin. He was alive, scrambling through the chaos, eyes wide with terror. "We need to go, now," he yelled. But before he could reach them, the ground cracked open. "Run!" Jamal cried, finally yanking Arthur toward the exit. They stumbled through debris, knees scraping hard against the jagged floor, but each step felt heavy, like they were wading through tar. Then came a blinding flash. It lit up the corridor like daylight, revealing a cloaked figure standing next to Devlin, a smirk curving on their lips. "You thought hiding the truth could save you?" The voice was distinctly feminine, but sent a shiver down Arthur's spine, a sinister familiarity clawing at the back of his mind. "Who are you?" Arthur shouted, breathless, heart thunderous in his chest. The figure stepped closer, slowly, deliberately. "Don't you remember me, Arthur? I'm the one who set all this in motion." Panic froze him in place. It couldn't be. "No. Is that? No. Emily." His voice barely escaped, choked with disbelief. Emily, his childhood friend, the girl he thought disappeared all those years ago. She laughed, a haunting sound echoing through the chaos. "Surprised to see me? You should be. The little girl you left behind has grown up." Everything was crashing. The pieces shattered around him. "What did you do?" he managed to whisper. "Why?" "Because your family isn't what you think. They've been playing both sides, and I'm tired of the lies, Arthur. Your father used us all." She stepped back, voice hardening. "But don't worry, I'll help you bring them down. That's what you wanted, isn't it?" Confusion and fear churned in Arthur's gut as the truth peeled back like an onion. layer after layer. Emily wasn't just a bystander. She was a player in this disturbing game. He felt a tightness in his chest, the weight of betrayal crushing him. A loud crash echoed through the hotel as another beam fell, snapping him back to the present. "We need to leave," he yelled, but as he turned to lead the way, he felt a cold hand grip his shoulder, and then fear hit him like a freight train as he turned to find Cameron standing directly behind him, face twisted in anger. "You think you can just run off with her, with all the secrets? You don't know what you're getting into." The ground shook again, throwing them all off balance. Emily's smirk faltered as she stumbled. Arthur gasped, feeling the chaotic pull of everything he thought he understood, unraveling in a single moment. "Shut up," he yelled back at his father. The world blurred and his vision narrowed. This was it, the moment he had waited for since he was a boy, but it felt wrong. And before he could think, everything exploded. A deafening crack echoed as the ceiling caved in, sending debris raining down. "Arthur, jump!" Jamal shouted as he grabbed Arthur with one arm, the other shielding Anna. Amidst the dust and destruction, the truth was out there waiting, lurking like a predator ready to pounce. Shivers crawled down his spine as he wrestled with everything he had known, and the only thing ringing in his head was Emily's last haunting words. "Welcome to the game." As the walls crumbled, Arthur realized nothing would ever be the same. Everything he had thought was real was just another move on a board he couldn't even see. What would this twisted game demand of him next? The room felt like it was collapsing around them, shadows shifting, chaos crashing in waves. Arthur stood paralyzed as debris rained down. He could barely breathe, the weight of everything pressing down harder than the crumbling ceiling. "Run!" Jamal cried again, but the panic swelling in Arthur's chest kept him frozen. That laugh, that cruel, familiar laugh, his father's voice echoed, mingling with the disaster. "Just stay out of this," he shouted, anger igniting within him, but it was drowned out by the noise. Emily, still looming nearby, her eyes gleaming, took a step forward. "Arthur, don't you want the truth?" "No," he roared back. But the ground trembled underfoot, and the air was thick with something. Fear, desperation. He felt like a pawn in a game spinning faster than he could control. The chaos swirled around them, shadows whispering secrets he'd never wanted to hear. And then everything shifted again. The blast was instantaneous. A blinding flash lit up the entire hotel. It felt like time stopped. Arthur's heart dropped as the air crackled, a shockwave rippling through his skin. In the midst of it all, a figure appeared, stepping through the explosive light. It was a woman, tall and fierce, standing in the entrance with an air of authority. Her uniform was dark, armor gleaming like obsidian in the flickering light. "I'm here for Arthur Mason," she declared, voice ringing loud and clear, cutting through the madness like a knife. His breath snagged in his throat. There was an intensity in her eyes he couldn't place, a chill that crawled under his skin. "Who are you?" His voice barely went above a whisper. She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she focused her gaze on Cameron, a smirk tracing the corners of her mouth. "Cameron Mason, nice to see you again. We've got some unfinished business." Everything inside him coiled tighter. Cameron's face shifted, eyes narrowing with recognition, malice radiating from him. "You shouldn't have come here, Grace. You don't know what you're messing with." "Actually, I do," she shot back, her voice low and menacing. "You're the one who doesn't understand the stakes." Just then, in the explosive brightness, Arthur caught a glimpse of something glinting in Grace's hand, a small device. It looked like a small bomb, ticking alarmingly. "Wait, what are you doing?" Arthur shouted, fear clawing at his insides. "This changes everything," Grace exclaimed, raising it slightly, eyes sharp. "The truth isn't what you think, Arthur. You're part of something much bigger than your family's lies." Suddenly, her words twisted through Arthur's mind like a jagged blade. "What do you mean?" he gasped, heart racing. "It's all a setup, a game. Your father made sure you took the fall, and it's time the world sees him for who he really is." Before he could process, she pulled the device toward her chest. "This will reveal everything." His eyes widened. "No, you can't!" But then a blinding flash. The device exploded with a thunderous roar, a wave of heat crashing over them, and in that moment, everything went black. Silence enveloping the chaos. Everything crumbled. A moment stretched into eternity. As darkness faded, Arthur realized he was lying on the ground. Panic surged. Where was everyone? When his vision cleared, he shot up. The hotel looked like a war zone, dust settling over debris and bodies, confusion echoes haunting the air. And there, in the center of the chaos, was Emily. Only she wasn't herself anymore. Her face twisted and transformed into his late mother's face. "Forgive me, Arthur." "What the hell?" he shouted, stumbling back. The world tilted wildly as their surroundings pulsated with illusions. "Mom?" But it was gone before he could process fully. The smile faded into something broken, and it was Emily again, her eyes wide, filled with terror. That moment exposed the deepest betrayal. As everything fell apart, Arthur questioned everything. The linchpin was family, the only person who mattered, gone in an instant. A wall of truth crashed over him, shattering the life he thought he lived. With one breath, the entire reality crumbled. What did this mean? What was real? As he stared into a future of chaos, the true game was only beginning. The dust settled slowly, masking the chaos that had consumed the hotel. Arthur blinked against the debris, his heart pounding like a drum in his chest. Emily stood in front of him, her figure wavering as if caught between realities. Was this truly happening? "Arthur, you have to trust me." She pleaded, her eyes wild. "I know you're hurt, but they're after you. The truth, it's bigger than both of us." "No more lies," he shouted, each word painfully steeped in the weight of betrayal. His mind raced, piecing together fragmented memories of his childhood, of whispered conversations, and the shadows that always seemed to lurk at the edge of his family. "You can't just drop this bombshell and expect me to believe you." Grace stepped forward, her arm steady. "There's no time to waste. If we don't leave now, we'll all be trapped in this web of lies." A crack echoed, and the walls moaned, as if they too were afraid. Arthur felt the tremor beneath his feet. Panic twisted his stomach. "Jamal!" "Anna!" he shouted, searching for his brother and the woman who had courageously stood by him. They were in this fight together, and he needed them to break free. "Over here, Arthur!" Jamal's voice rang out against the chaos, cutting through the panic. Arthur turned to find him by the exit, holding Anna close, their faces painted with shock and determination. "Go," Jamal urged, his tone urgent. "We can't stay here." A ball of fear coiled tighter in Arthur's chest, but he moved. He dashed toward them, the weight of every step like drumming thunder. "Come on!" Anna grabbed his hand, and they rushed toward the shattered door. They could see daylight seeping through the cracks, a sliver of hope in the looming despair. They sprinted, heartbeats echoing the urgency of their escape. But then, from the shadows, a figure emerged. It was Cameron, fury twisting his features, a dark storm trailing behind him. "Arthur, you can't run from your blood!" Cameron shouted, fingers curling around a half-broken doorframe. "This is not over." The energy shifted. Arthur felt a surge of anger, the memories of his father's manipulation igniting a fire in his veins. "You've lied to me my entire life," he yelled back, forcing himself to stand firm. "This ends now." A faint crack in Cameron's composed facade appeared for a brief moment, but then it was gone. The walls trembled again, and Arthur knew they had to decide: fight or flee. "Let's go," Emily urged, her voice sharp. Jamal pulled Arthur back a step, meeting his gaze with a fierce determination. "We can expose him. We have to fight for the truth." But before they could act, Grace threw something, a flashbang. The flash lit up the hallway, blinding everyone. Arthur fell back, disoriented. "Go!" he heard someone yell. He staggered to his feet, his senses buzzing. He saw Emily beside him, urgency in her eyes. Outside, sunlight poured in, bright as freedom. They burst through the doors into blinding relief. But as they stood there, panting, faces smeared with dirt and fear, a wave of doubt swept over Arthur. He turned back, longing for closure, but instead felt winded by uncertainty. "Will we ever be free of this?" he muttered, clenching his fists. "What if it's not truly over?" Emily stepped closer, the connection sparking between them. "We will keep fighting, Arthur. We're not alone, not anymore." And just like that, a small flicker of hope ignited deep within him. They had survived this far. Maybe together they could uncover the truth and rebuild. The horrors of their past lingered, but as shadows faded behind them, they faced the dawn of a new beginning. His heart swelled with determination. It wasn't just about them. It was about everyone affected by the Mason legacy. The cycle of deceit would end if they chose to break it. And with that resolve, Arthur took a deep breath and nodded. But the future remained uncertain, questions creeping back like shadows. What other truths lay hidden? What consequences awaited? They didn't have all the answers yet, but they were ready to face whatever came next. Before we end this incredible journey, don't forget, you must subscribe now so you don't miss out on the upcoming exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button to feed the algorithm and keep us going. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this finale. Let's hear how you felt about it all. And don't wait 1 second longer to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to know how it all ends. Your support means everything to us.